Episode 19 of Print and Paint. I'm Kevin. Today I'm on Thingiverse on the Artisan Guild page. I'm doing the Gryphkins. They release some of the model for free sometime, and this one is pretty new. There is a really nice pose on it. It's pre-supported, so that's good. Let's do it. Okay, so let's have a quick look in Chitubox. Here, as you can see, first I can fit the whole thing on one build plate, which is great. There is a lot of support. A lot of them are really tiny at the tip, but they should be okay. The wings here have quite a lot of support. It's quite a cluster. We'll see how it goes later. And everything else is pretty standard, pretty classic. I choose to put the base on the support instead of flat on the bed because everything is together. And right now, quick look. As you can see, everything came out really nicely. I had a couple of very thin support who broke, but they probably done their job. It broke after, and looking good. Okay, that's it for the print. As you saw, everything came out pretty nicely. Just a small couple of hiccups. I had the support stuck a bit on the stone here. It might have been my exposure being a bit too high, I'm not sure. But nothing crazy, really easy to clean. The only major problem, so to speak, was the wings. There was a lot of support damage here. A lot of them are behind the model, they're a bit hidden, so that's fine. I know Greg from 3D Printing Pro have done those support and he's really nice at doing this, there is no doubt. And I looked back in Chitubox, the model is pretty complex. It's a bit annoying, I think, to print. So I leave it as it was. I've tried to clean the best that I could. And it's pretty nice anyway like this. I couldn't probably do any better. So I've primed in gray. I got my color scheme already and let's paint. So here, as you can see, I got my 4 pieces all separate. I'm gonna start with the wings and the skin. The reason is because they are the most prominent color on the model, so I want to start with what's gonna take most of the spaces. So that I'm going first with some dark blue for the feathers and just some kind of normal purple on the skin. Here I'm doing some recesses for the muscles, just trying to define the volume. And I just took the same purple and I darkened it a little bit. And then over with some highlights. Same thing here, I'm just trying to define some muscles. Trying to define my volume and see what I can go with it. And with a brighter color, I'm just here trying to define a bit of highlight. I'm trying to have a nice blend at the same time, but it was fine for the skin. I did a decent job, I think, but it's always a bit tricky sometimes. The style is still really saturated. As you can see here, the deep shadow from the recess to the highlight are really contrasted, but I'm still happy with it. I could do a better job. I think it's a bit too much, but I like contrast sometimes, and in this case I was happy with the way I was going. Here I always try to get my highlights on the right spot. If you want to sell the effect, you really want to make sure it looks kind of believable. Into the wings, so what I'm doing, I'm just dry brushing some light blue. The reason I just want a gradient from one part of the feathers to the tip. I want the tip to be brighter, so I started with this bright blue. And then with another type of blue, which is called ultramarine blue for the Vallejo. I'm defining some feathers, not all of them, just a couple. And when it was done, I'm going with some bright blue again and defining every part of the feathers, every tip of them. So it's a bit take a long time, but it's really adding a lot. You really have all your volume and all your highlight coming up. And this previous blue from before had a little bit of depth to the color. It's not all the same. And after I was done, I even decided to dry brush this turquoise to add some kind of, I don't know, just another color and make it a bit more interesting. And of course I've done the same on the head where there is a lot of feathers. So right now I'm just starting on my armor. I'm using copper here for the armor.
And then I'm using gold for those frames. I wanted to use gold for the whole thing, but it would have been a bit weird, I feel, so I was like, okay, why not? Let's try to work on those metallic paints. It felt a bit bright. When everything was done, I was like, okay, it's really shiny, which is the point, I'm sure, but I was like, okay, let's put some black washes and try to tone down the pop of those metallic paints. Here on the shield, I'm adding some small scratches. I'm coming back with some brightened copper and I'm adding scratches, edge highlight. I'm back on the face, trying to add some details on the mouth. I'm gonna do the eyes and the tongue. Here on the eyes, trying to go steady. I'm starting with, so I start with the white and then I had this dab of oranges on both sides and a tiny bit of black over. And in the end I've managed to do a great job and it looked really nice for an eyes. So after the base coat on this laser part, base coat, washes and dry brush, really classic. And that's what I went for. On the cloth here of the skirts, I spent a lot of time off camera trying to have a really smooth blend. As you can see, I started with some really bright brown. It didn't really work that much, so I decided, okay, let's just do some washes and move on because I spent probably like hours on it. Right now I'm doing the non-metallic paint on the spear. I'm defining some lights and some shadows. I'm trying to have some color as well, a bit bluish, and right now I'm adding more at the end. It might be a bit too contrasted. Looking back at it, I'm like, okay, maybe if I tone down the contrast on this non-metallic paint, I could do a better job. I will have to try for next time. And here, one of the last touch, I'm adding an emerald on the chest plate. It's really easy and quick to do. Just some green, then you darken some parts and doing this really small highlight on the edge of the emerald, and the effect is really nice. On the base here I wanted a dusty kind of feeling, so that's what I went for. Not really dark, but that's fine. I wanted to try something new as well. I'm adding some pigment at the end, trying to make even more dusty, and that's it.
And that's it for this little guy, the Gryphkin from the Artisan Guild. The color scheme that I had in mind came out pretty well in the end. I wanted to go a bit out of the box and not really look at the natural, like birdish colors. So I went with purple skin, blue feathers, and it's great. I'm still lacking the technique a little bit. I really need to improve more on my blending and different type of techniques. But that's fine, still good to try on one more mini and explore new stuff. So that's a good one for today, and see you next time.